Well, good evening. Nice to see you guys out there. Today's broadcast is about my child's double life. So we're going to get into that. Excuse me. But just before we do, I want to, excuse me. Before we do, I want to dedicate this show to my cousin, Rashid Matthews, Rashid Abdullah Matthews, 1975 to 2025. Me and this guy was tight since, we were children. Excuse me. It definitely struck the family hard in regards to his death. And, obviously some of us are still grieving. Let's put a word out there to families. Nobody is promised tomorrow. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I mean, it's just the obvious fact. Nobody's promised tomorrow. And in your family, you have to treat each other with love, admiration, and respect. Even the ones that's hard to deal with. Because you never know when somebody's going through something or may need someone. So, if you guys are going through situations in your family, lay that stuff to rest. Because it's not that important. Now, you might be saying that, well, how can you say that? And it's not about your family. It's things in my family that's happened like that too. Even myself, I've had to, apologize to folks and, lay down my plate and be humble in regards to certain situations. So if you guys are disputing about anything, money or how someone that was offended who's no longer with us, please just let that go. Because like I said, nobody's promised tomorrow and you never know when your time is up. And like I said, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's a fact. So I want to, pause for like 30 seconds and give my cousin the honor that he deserves, and then we'll resume with the show. All right. So rest well, cousin. Love you. We'll always miss you. You'll always be my homie. We was tight as kids. And a day won't go by that I won't be thinking about you. So let's get into our discussion here. So when we think about my child's double life, it's it's a case that you really want to look at. Like, what exactly is my child doing that I need to know about? So let's look at some things that need to be looked at in regards to my child's double life. So The first thing that I would say we need to look at is knowing what a double life is. So here's our definition right here. So a double life, a life of a person who leads two different lives that are kept separate from each other, usually because one of them involves a secret, often illegal activities. So let me just read that again. It's a life of a person who leads two different lives that are kept separate from each other, usually because one of them involves a secret, often illegal activities. So as parents, sometimes this is hard to, discover, because you don't really know at times what your child is doing. So let's just look at the role of a parent. Let's check that out for a minute. Check out what the role of a parent is in regards to, caring for a child. Now, this is Act 38. It's an act that the state of Pennsylvania enforces in regards to children's well-being. So this is the role of a parent according to Act 38. To care for a child, to keep contact with the child, to act as guardian of a child, and to contribute to the maintenance of a child. So let's read that again. To care for a child and keep contact with the child, to act as the guardian of a child, and to contribute to the maintenance of a child. Now that's a lot. When we say contribute to the maintenance, that's like, you want to make sure that it's functioning correctly. You bring your car in for maintenance, you making sure that, the parts on the car is running, the oil is good. You might not have any issues and things of that nature, things like that. So that your car will run, proficiently. Now, with a child, obviously you're not checking the oil on the child, but it is some things you have to check. For one, child's room. Some parents allow their children to put them out of, now this is what I'm saying, the room that the child stays in. Because if you paying the rent or the at that residence, then that's your room. Now I know you want to give your child privacy and a sense of self as a person, but we really got to be careful in regards to what these children are doing. And I don't care what kind of child you have. You can have if you got a child in the streets, you definitely need to be checking the room. But if you got a child that's not in the streets and they doing certain activities and appear not to be a troublemaker or in any type of crazy situation, you want to check that room too, because you just don't know. But I believe some of the parents do know, and they just don't want to admit that, or they're too ashamed that their child is doing, crazy stuff. But as a parent, you have to be that guardian. You have to ensure that your child is doing what's needed and the right things so they can have a more productive life. That's your job as a parent. Your child shouldn't be controlling the household. If you go in your room and your child is there, they shouldn't be like, Mom or Dad, get out. Like your child can't put you out of a room that doesn't belong to them. Like I said, it's your household, so it's your room. You know what I mean? So we want to remember that. Now, what you looking for in the room? Drugs, weapons, or anything that, may draw a red flag. Something that's not this out of place, I would say. So the purpose for this is to bring attention to yourself. Because if these type of items is in your child's room, this is something that you want to bring to their attention. Now, this is something I just recently learned. If you do happen to find this stuff in the child's room, do not go and start screaming and yelling to the top of your lungs, because nobody is going to respond to that. You need to sit your child down in a, pleasant, peaceful manner, and you have a conversation with them. You say, hey, I was in your room and I found these items. And you talk calmly, lovingly, and respectfully, but then at the same time, you want to find out, why is this stuff in your room? It shouldn't be blunt wrappers in there, or I shouldn't find bags of marijuana or any other type of drugs, and any type of weapons or anything like that. Nothing like that there. Property somebody else. You know what I mean? So condom wrappers, condoms, all that stuff. Because this is your household. And whatever's happening in there, you're the one that's going to be responsible for it. So if your son bringing in the little girl down the street and you working at night and, they doing a little thing, and then the little girl down the street get pregnant, then that happened in your household. Now, the little girl parents don't care if you work at night. All they know is that my daughter got pregnant at your house by your son. That's why you got to check this stuff out. So if you check this room and you find this stuff, you find this condom, well, I'm hopefully they ain't just blowing them up and playing with them like they balloons, but what's happening? What you need this condom for? And like I said, you have a peaceful and civilized conversation with the child, because if you go in there 100 miles per minute, all off the chain, then nobody's going to respond to that. Because you wouldn't want nobody hollering and screaming at you about something that you did wrong. Next thing you want to check, their book bags or any type of bags that they may be carrying around. Purses, if you got a little girl, check the purse and all that. Again, you're checking for drugs, weapons, any type of sexual paraphernalia, anything. Now, like I said, you're not trying to remove the privacy of your child, but you're trying to protect them from anything that could cause harm to them, somebody else. Now, here's something else also. So, for all, the churchgoers and the folks and, my Muslims and other religious followers, prayer alone does not work. So don't just pray to your God, Jesus, Allah, Buddha, whoever, and don't put no action towards it. Now, I'm not an expert in other religions, so if your religion say pray and you ain't got to do it, and that's what you believe because you believe your God is going to work it out, I'm not even going to say follow that, because it's too risky to do that. You're taking a gamble on your own child's life. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't pray, because you need to pray. You need that relationship with God. But after you pray, if you pray with God, keep my child safe and make sure that he's a successful person, you have to do something for that to happen. Jesus is not a genie. You don't just rub him on the back and then poof, all this magic happens. Now, don't get me wrong, miracles will happen, in certain situations, as he wills necessary. But that's not in every case. And you don't want to gamble your kid's life like that. You know what I mean? So you got to do something. So you checking these book bags, these purses. You checking for drugs, like I said, sexual paraphernalia, weapons, anything that may be a red flag. And like I said, you're not really trying to invade your child's privacy, because children do have privacy too. But we talking about detecting something that may be off. Now, invading their privacy would be like if they on the phone, you got a house phone. I don't know how many people still got a house phone. And you on the other end like this. Don't do that. Now, if you trying to figure out who they talking to, you kindly ask them, hey, I need to have a conversation with you. Tell your friend to call you back. And then you go from there. Even the friends they got coming and calling. You know what I mean? If they on the phone all the time, ask them who they talking to. Because it's your phone bill. And then check the phone. Check their social media pages. Don't be scared. Check it. You pay the bill. And if, they say, well, I ain't going to give you my phone. That's not their phone. Now, here's a case, here's a situation that somebody may ask. What if they did buy the phone? Well, they in your house. And that's your child. So they have to respect your authority. So I don't care if they brought the phone, Jesus brought the phone, they dad brought the phone, they mom, they aunt Teeny, Aunt Tootie. You can still get that phone. You have to still get that phone and check it. But don't just go up to them and just snatch the phone out of their hand, because that's ridiculous. You now creating like a fearful environment. Tell them what you want the phone for. Well, ask for it first. Kindly. They'll give it to you. Ask them to unlock it. I don't want to say you should know the password, because even if they dig you the password, they'll change it. But ask them to unlock the phone, and then tell them you're going through the phone. Now, if it's some type of confrontation or anything like that, you have to resolve it civilly. Now, if they get out of hand, then you got to resolve that. You don't want to do anything that's going to harm your child or anything like that. But you should have the type of relationship with your child where these are things that wouldn't come up. Like your child thinking about putting their hands on you or things of that nature. Now back to the phone. If you say they searching, you gonna search through their phone, and they immediately try to grab the phone back. That means there's something on that phone that they don't want you to see. What is that? I wouldn't know, and you don't know. Only person knows is them. So you have to ask. Well, hold on for a second. Wait a minute. Why are you so anxious to get this phone back? What's on this phone that you don't want me to see? And sometimes it could be something stupid like, well, I had this bad makeup on. I had a bad hair day, or I look stupid in this shirt or whatever like that, and I didn't want to see it. Or we took school pictures and somebody put the bunny rabbit ears behind me, and that's on my phone or whatever like that. Or it could be them on social media doing something simple, like toting guns in the air or smoking weed on there, or using drugs or whatever like that. in a fight, you know what I mean? Somebody where they recording your child fighting with another individual, anything, you know what I mean? Now, you could have a situation where the child isn't necessarily doing something that's out of term, well, wrong, criminally, I would say, or just behavior wise, but that could be, say they streaming a podcast and they using, inappropriate language. You want to check that too, because they don't have any reason to be using inappropriate language. And if you cuss around your children, then you want to try to curb that. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it's hard. I've laid a few out in front of my kids before, but I don't try to make that a habit. Like I said, the phone, the bedroom, your room. Check your room too. Don't just check their room, because they could be sneaky enough to hide stuff in your room. You know what I mean? They can hide stuff in the basement if you got an attic, all that stuff. But normally they'll probably just hide stuff in the room. I met one lady some time ago, and her son was hiding a whole girl in a crawl space in that basement downstairs. And the girl was in there for like a couple of days. He feeding her and all kinds of stuff, but she ain't know. And here's why she didn't know. Because her and the son didn't have a good relationship. The son really didn't respect her authority as a parent. And I'm not going to lie, she really didn't know how to talk to him. Now, I'm not going to say if those things was present, that the little girl might not be downstairs in the crawl space, or in the home, but it might have been a different situation. If he felt as though that, hey, I can talk to my mom about this, he might have said, well, hey, Tootie down the street, her parents put her out. You mind if she stay here for a couple of days, or, whatever the case may be. But it should never come to the fact that your child is uncomfortable talking to you about stuff. This is where the double life thing comes in at. So let's look at the definition again. The life of a person who leads two different lives. Let's look at that. When you lead two different lives, that means you are two different people. So one of the reasons why a person will lead a double life is that, they're trying to conceal a secret. Now, if they're trying to conceal a secret, most people that have secrets, that have people that they can trust, speak to, or they confide in regards to this secret. Now, I'm not going to say this is always the parent, but if you have a good relationship with your child, then the child may or may not know that they need to hide something from you. Now, if it's a serious matter like life or death or a serious life decision, I'm going to say they're going to confide in you. But it depends on you as a parent. You can't be talking to these kids all crazy and then expect for them to share the world with you. And they already talk. That don't work like that. If you talking to your kids crazy, you're instilling fear in them or caution in them that they can't come to you about, particular situations. And that's not good, because as a parent, you should have like an open door policy, like, hey, honey, you can come talk to me about anything, or, my door is always open for you, or whatever like that. And don't put nobody in front of your kids, husband, boyfriend, anybody, because you don't want them to feel like that they're not important to you. So that's another thing. So you have to realize that your child's brain, let me see if I can find a picture of a brain right fast. So your child's brain is not fully developed until they reach the age of 25. So I'm gonna use this right here. This is a pretty good picture I can use. Let's see if I can save it. All right. Let's see. So the child's brain is not fully developed. A person's brain, I'm sorry, is not fully developed until they reach the age of 25. So let's look at the brain for a second. So let's remove this one. So there you go right there. We're going to look at that. I got to look at the one here. So here we go. So that's a child's brain right there. Well, that's a brain period. So if you're looking at the top, that's the frontal cortex. That's the part that does not develop fully until they're 25. So if you're still looking at that here, this part right here is not fully developed until the person is 25. Now this part right here, this part is called the I gotta look at it because I can't see it. The cerebellum, then it's the brain stem. Now these two parts of the brain is what people get their reactions from. Let me pull this thing back up. So these two parts right here controls like a person's reactions. So if somebody throws something at you, you know, your common reaction is just like try to catch it or like knock it away. So for a child that doesn't have a fully developed frontal lobe in their age, the reactions to certain situations is going to be different. That's why you always have to have like a calm manner when you engaging with your child, because some children don't know how to fully correctly respond to certain situations. If the child knock over a pitcher of grape juice on your table and they 5, 9 times out of 10 they probably not going to clean that up. Or if they do try to clean it up, they probably going to take something crazy like the kitchen towel, or just lay it on the table, or all the bounty napkins or whatever like that. It's not going to be cleaned up properly because their frontal lobe is not fully developed. So they don't know how to process the fact that I got to clean this up. But as an adult, you have to know that your child, depending on the age, is not going to know how to respond to things in a particular manner. I gotta put that back up there. Depending on what's happening in their brain. And why this is important is that it just makes sense, because the younger the person is, the less information they'll have in their head to process like a correct response. So if you're going off of their misbehavior due to the fact that they don't know how to process things, and you're constantly hollering or threatening them or punishing them, it's going to cause a fear in them towards you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you don't set consequences, because you do have to do that also. You explain what in a calm manner, and you say, well, hey, unfortunately, if this is like a repeat behavior, I've told you not to do this before, and you got to do X, Y, and Z. Now, if it's something that's like, stealing from the store or whatever like that, you have to explain, hey, you don't do that. And it really depends on you what type of consequence you would give. I probably wouldn't beat the child or whatever like that. Now, if it's normally like repeat behavior that they're, continually doing that, then you want to kind of find out like where that's coming from. And you correct that accordingly. But you have to correct it within a civil manner, so your child feels like that, they can talk to you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it to be the most easiest thing you can do, because it's not. Because even I sometimes holler at my kids when they do certain things, but the more I practice not to, the less it happens. So why am I saying all this? Because if you don't really consider the development and age of your child and you keep attacking them, then they're not going to feel comfortable opening up to you, and then they're going to start keeping secrets from you. And then here comes this double life. Then they'll run into other kids or peers that they feel comfortable talking to, because most children feel comfortable talking to kids that's their own age range, especially if they, going through similar situations. 9 times out of 10, most inner city kids are going through similar situations. Mom might be a crackhead, might not have a dad, might be being bullied by the dude down or girl down the street, might be living in poverty, whatever the case may be. So they can relate and say, well, hey, this dude don't really eat dinner like I don't, or, dinner for him is a chicken wing and a pack of oodles and noodles. We got something in common. So they can relate with this person because those two people have something in common. You have to have an open relationship with your child. And you have to watch who the child is engaging with. If you don't, there's no telling who's putting particular information in your child's head. You know what I mean? So you want to be careful about that. Now, what if the other parent is a bad influence? You got to deal with that too. And you want to, how can I say, intercept whatever that person is saying. Now, I'm not saying keep the child away from that person. You know what I mean? You have to make arrangements that, that this person can still see that child in a safe manner, and they're not producing any harm to your child. But if you feel as though that you and that person doesn't have the same type of parenting skills or strategies, then you just talk to your child when they come back, or let them know that, hey, me and your dad or me and your mom, we don't agree on certain things. So if they take you such and such, let me know. My mom would always say that, like, if my brother or somebody took me somewhere, like, hey, they take you somewhere where they doing drugs or something like that, take your behind outside, or don't go, or whatever like that. Because she just wanted to protect me as a kid. She didn't want me to be around like that type of environment. And the parent, if you guys don't agree on certain things, you have to come together as a unit so that you guys can agree, because that can also cause your child to have a double life, because if the two parents don't agree, then the child may not feel comfortable that I could talk to either one of y'all, because y'all don't even get along. So if y'all don't get along, then I ain't got a shot. How am I get along with you, or try to share something with you, and you don't even get along with my mom, or you don't get along with my dad, or whatever? You know what I mean? So it has to be, some civilness within the household. What I'm saying is not easy. And it's probably going to be some resistance, from the child. But it has to be done. And I'm not saying like you do this every day or whatever like that. You know what I mean? If your kid is out in the streets, then first you want to correct that problem. And then you probably have to do that every day with that person. And you probably want to check them and stuff like that. They're like doing this to save your child's life. And they be like, well, I don't know what they call the fuzz or the po-po or ops or whatever. Like, I don't give a darn what they call you. They call you ops, snops, black ops, part 3, whatever. I don't care. your job as a parent, let's look at it again. Let's remove the brain. To care for a child. You can't care for a child if you're scared of a child. To keep contact with the child. You can't keep contact with the child if the child is scared to talk to you. Actually, that applies to the first part too. You can't care for a child if the child's scared of you. You know what I mean? To act as the guardian of the child. Again, you can't do that if the child doesn't feel comfortable with you. And then this is your house. This is your home. You're the one that's paying the bills. You're the one that's paying the utilities and everything. You know what I mean? It should be rules in your house that child has to abide by. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't do nothing crazy like you setting unmeasurable determinants on the person. Like what I'm saying is you setting like unmeasurable expectations upon the child that's unrealistic. You know what I mean? So you don't want to do that. And the last part, you want to contribute to the maintenance of the child. Excuse these typos in there. I got that I copied that from a website. So I didn't really have time to check it. Well, I just missed it is what I'm trying to say. And you want to do this just to ensure that your child ain't out there doing nothing crazy. And like I said, you don't have to do this every day. And you may not have to do this at all if you don't suspect something. Now, to check in the room and the phone and the bag and everything like that, I would, just once in a while or whatever like that, a random check. Because you just want to be safe. Now, if you really, you get to the point where it's though, well, you like, my kid ain't doing nothing, then hey, don't bother with it no more. But I would not do it. And don't announce that you're doing it. Don't be like, on Friday, I'm going to check your room. This should be like a surprise to them. And probably I would check the room when they're not in there. And your child should not have a lock on your room door. And you ain't got access to it. So that's just how that goes. You know what I mean? So you don't want to do that. Matter of fact, should nobody in your house have a lock on the door in your house that you ain't got access to. Because you don't know, if they're locking something, I mean, obviously it's for a purpose, but you want to make sure it's for the right purpose. So I'm telling you this because I'm concerned about your kids. I'm concerned about my kids. And I don't care what your kids doing. They could be singing lead at the choir. They could be the assistant pastor. They could be the honor roll student or whatever. They can be a candidate for the next space launch into space, whatever the case may be. But you don't want the case to be that you are burying your child because you missed something or you ignore the red flag. If your kid coming in the house, walking past you, and they smell like weed and a strong scent, 9 times out of 10, they smoking weed. Or they're around somebody smoking weed. And you don't want either one of them to happen. You don't want your kids to be hanging around kids that's using drugs. Or you don't want your kid to be using drugs. And please don't let your kids say, and I've heard people do this, oh, that wasn't me, that was Tyrone. And you still letting him play with Tyrone. I mean, hang out with Tyrone. Don't do that. Because after a while, don't you think Tyrone is going to influence your kid to use drugs? And don't say, well, that'll never be my kid. Now, I love my daughters to death, all 3 of them. But I would never say that would never be my kid. Because I don't know what they would do. You understand what I'm trying to say to you? Now, I'm not trying to say that they're the kids just up to no good, period. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you have to make sure your kids are not leading a double life. And I know it just sounds kind of crazy. Like, well, You just want me to just check my kid out of nowhere and see if they doing something wrong. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Now, if you know for a fact and it's in your heart and you know where your kid is at all times, and then that's another thing. Wherever your kid is at, you need to know. They walk out that door. Well, first of all, you should take them to where they're going at. Not unless they got a car or something like that. But if they got a car, you say, well, hey, call me when you get to so-and-so house. And then you have so-and-so's parents' number. And you call them. You say, well, hey, this is Amaya's dad. Hey, I was just calling to check and see how the girl's doing. Now, if the mom say, Amaya ain't been here, then that's a red flag. Now, you call you wait till your daughter come back in, you be like, hey, I thought you said you was going over so-and-so house. Where you been at? And don't let your child be talking all crazy to you because you the parent. They not the parent. So a lot of people in society say that there's no book to this stuff. It is. It's like thousands of parenting books out there. Just because they don't give you one in the hospital, that don't mean that it don't come with a manual. It don't come with a manual. These phones don't come with a manual. But you know how to operate them. You'll look on YouTube or ask a friend or do whatever to figure out what's happening with your phone. So if you're willing to do that, why you can't, be willing to, not everybody, but some parents, be willing to get the information you need to make sure that you are raising a well-developed child. Because it's in your best interest that happens. Because whatever the child do, the people out in the street ain't going to blame it on them. They ain't going to be like, well, I mean, they are going to blame it on them, but they're not going to be like, well, they must have learned that themselves. They be like, well, what household they come from? Or why they mom and dad let them do that? But it works twofold also. Because if your kid doing great stuff, people will be like, well, I'm sure your parents is proud of you. And I've said that people I'm doing Uber. They in school, they doing good things. Shoot, I tell them I'm proud of them. I don't even know these people like that. And I say, well, I'm sure your parents is proud of you also. But you have to know, what your child is doing. Because you the guardian. You the guardian of the child. You can't let your child just walk out the door and your child need a curfew. I don't give a darn what they doing. Or if they sing on all the choirs in the church in the neighborhood, at every church in the neighborhood. I don't care if they do that at all. Your child walk out the door, you need to know where they going at. Because they don't own nothing in there. And it's not their house. And here's something else. Stop telling them it's their house. They live there. Now, I understand what you're saying. This is your house because you live here with mom. All right, so you probably you can say that. But this is your house, but you go by my rules. You dig what I'm saying to you? So, you still getting a type of the type of information that you need. I mean, you setting boundaries in regards to, like what's happening, in your household. Because once you had a child thinking that it's their house and they have the same authority that you have, then they're not going to respect your authority. So females also, if you have, your son is at the house, y'all live together, don't tell him he the man of the house because he's not even a man. I just told you that the child's brain right here is not fully developed until they're 25. So how you telling them they the man of the house and they 14? Now they can do the job of a man that will be in the house, as the male figure there, but they are not the man of your house. Because when I hear that, that means that I have authority at the house. Like I'm the man of this house. I'm the only person here. But if my kids was here, if I had a girlfriend or a wife or whatever like that, I'm still the man of the house. Your child, your 14-year-old child is not the man of your house. Now I understand what you're saying. You're trying to give the child a sense of responsibility, a sense of pride, a sense of, being a part of something. But you don't go about doing that. Stop putting labels on these kids that they're not ready to follow through with. So I just want you guys and your children to be safe. And you have to know what your kid is. Your kid should not have a double life. You know what I mean? They're not Spider-Man, Iron Man, or anything. And even if they is, you need to know where they gonna go save the day at. You know what I mean? So, it's some books out there on parenting. I'm not sure if it's books out there in regards to, how to handle a kid with a double life. It's books out there about how to handle people with a double life. Or just look on YouTube or the internet. Things that, you can look up, like how to tell if your kid has a double life. I put stuff up on Facebook all the time. You know what I mean? But I just want your kids to be safe. I don't want you to be at somebody's funeral home and, you crying your heart out because you missed something. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said that family has to stay close together. It can't be no secrets. If you're in the family and you got secrets, then what you part of the family for? A family is a strong unit, and they all work together. You know what I mean? Like this remote control. If I take this off, I can't even take it off. This is the back of the remote control. These batteries right here, if I can take them out, they help the remote control. They power the remote control. Now you can see them little dots in there. I'm not sure what the heck they do, but they work inside of the remote control too. Everything on this remote control, even see the little clear shiny piece right there? That's the infrared part of the remote control. So when you press the function on the remote control, like I'm gonna show you now, so I just turn my TV on. And let me see. I'm gonna turn on this Plex thing here. Yeah. Always got an excuse to use Plex. So it's like no. So if you can hear that, I'm not sure if you can hear that or not. So the remote control has turned on the program that I selected from Plex. You can hear it in the background. So if the remote control has secrets, like if these buttons was hidden, then how you gonna know how to operate the remote control? It's not going to operate functionally correctly as a unit. So as a family, you really can't keep secrets from each other. I mean, there's some things that, it's just common sense that, you might not share, like your bank account or whatever like that. But some family members do that. I ain't saying do that, but, if you got like health concerns or problems with your kid, or you need to know how to buy a house, or you're thinking about going back to school, it's people in your family that did that. Trust me, it's somebody in there or somebody that's thinking about it. So maybe you two can come together and collaborate and do that. But it's just been a scary time. And with the administration that we have now, ain't no telling what's going to happen. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just speaking the truth. And like I said, as a parent, you're the guardian. So you gotta, as a guardian, you checking and make sure everything is in place. Nothing's out of place. So I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate the individuals that watch this when it's, when they don't really get a chance when it's going on live. you know, sometimes I know I could be a bit much, but I really have you guys' well-being at heart. I really care for you kids. I really care for y'all, and I want the best for y'all. You know, if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing this. Um, it's like I said, there's books out there on pain. All you gotta do is just do a simple Google search, and all kinds of stuff will pop up. You go on Facebook and all kinds of stuff. And please don't be ashamed to reach out to somebody that's not of your color. You know what I mean? Now, I do have a caveat to that. Like, you know, you want to stay within your culture. But if it's just basic stuff like basic parenting and things like that, then, you know, you can get that from anywhere. Now, the type of the style of that parent, you know, you might want to stick within your culture. Like the basic, you know, the basic functions of parenting, you can learn that from anywhere. But, you know, a Chinese parent may have different customs and traditions as a Irish parent or something like that. So it's better to try to stick within your customs. But I mean, if you can't find one, then you know you gotta go with the best thing you can. But I I just really have like a heavy heart. There's been some incredible things happening with youth, sadly, traumatic things. And there's been some incredible things happening with youth that's been, you know, glorified and great. We want to stay on the glorified and great side, not the traumatic side. So that's it for me. My host, ooh, they just tried to the internet tried to cut me off. My host wasn't available today, but you know, she's had some technical difficulties, but hopefully she'll be back next week. Hopefully I'll be back next week. I'll try to do this more often. I know I've been a little lackadaisical with it. But love you guys. You guys have a great day, great evening, and keep moving forward. Take care. God bless and good night.